get my noisemaker out here. Okay, I got 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. See, we're all here. We got the Zoom folks displayed. And so with that, we'll go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, proceeding on to item number 2, any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? And if there aren't, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve the agenda for tonight. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, public comment. Item number 3. Do we have anyone here or on Zoom wanting to do public comment? And just a note, I'm just, for whatever reason, I'm just now seeing this. Should we just make that public comment? Persons present, not on the agenda. I don't know. Just have it be public comment in the future.
I have no preference.
Okay. Board, is it okay? Okay. So no one signed up for public comment.
Nope. Anyone on Zoom have public comment?
Okay, if not, we'll move on to item number 4, our consent agenda, the minutes from October 18th. If there's no additions, deletions, or corrections on that, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda for the minutes from October 18th, 2022.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes from the October 18th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 5, Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee recommendation for John Bell.
I just had a simple report, just stating that the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee voted unanimously at its last meeting to recommend Mr. Bell to that committee.
Or any discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
I would motion to approve the appointment for John Bell for the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. We appoint John Bell to the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item number 6, or resolution 2022-10, appointments to outside agencies. We probably ought to
And this is the one that
run
had
through those real quick.
this had the correction. I can bring up the corrected version here. Which has Ann Esch not listed under the PPRTA Citizen Advisory Committee because she's an at-large on that. So that was the only correction between the packet version and this version.
I'll go ahead and state for the meeting that on the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department, I have been approached about actually being on the commission, which is an oversight body, a voting body. I don't know if that's gonna happen or not. If it does happen, we'll have an opening on the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department Advisory Committee for a board member.
And are the dates correct? January 2023 through May 2022?
I'm actually doing it now,
5 months.
but
Okay.
this is kind of we're appointing going in the future.
The date listed on there will allow Mayor Dixon to perform that duty through the end of his current term.
Yep.
And Mr. Gooding and Ms. Escher, both in the audience, if you have any questions for them.
You're still willing to be the ones? Okay, I get thumbs up from both, so thank you.
So if it's for, I'm just looking at Trustee King's question here for this. This is what you're questioning, right?
Yes.
So that'd be May 2024, correct? Okay.
That'd be 20. Yeah, that'd be 2024. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I accepted your explanation.
So the two changes would be, or approved. So first of all, the resolution would be approved. With Anesh removed from the PPRTA CAC. And the date of the PPRBD advisory board to May 2024.
The other change that was made in the revision, also in the posted copy, had Ann Esch as an alternate for the board of directors. Those seats are only reserved for trustees or electeds.
And you're okay still doing that one that we don't have anyone identified for?
There is also a vacancy for the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority's aquatic or is it aquatic advisory? Water Quality Committee. That is something that certainly a citizen could participate in if anyone was interested. If anyone is interested, please let me know. Other than that, town staff has been covering that one.
The only thing I would say is, as we approach, the concern about sewer systems.
That's a good point. And suggested that if the town is looking at, or if we have any issues with the current septic systems, that might be an opportunity for somebody to participate in, or it might become more relevant as in the future.
If there's no other corrections, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the resolution naming appointments to committees, commissions, and outside agencies. Green Mountain Falls, resolution number 2022-10.
As corrected.
As corrected.
I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve resolution 2022-10 for the appointments to outside agencies as corrected. And Nate has the corrections already. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 7, our special event application for Bronc Day. Do we even need can we just go straight to a vote?
I guess my only question is, are there maps and things for like the street closures, everything like that? Because I don't think that. Okay,
Virtual headset of the way we figure out, And Sean took that map over last year, so they do have a copy of that.
Okay.
Somewhere.
Just technically, we have to have all that as part of the
It was sourced there.
application. That would be my only comment is if it's approved tonight, then contingent on getting all the documentation that we need.
You might want to restate the question and the answer for those on Zoom because we didn't have a microphone on Margaret.
I just asked if there,
I can provide you with the map that we've never had. Really, this is a question I'm being asked about, but I know the Marshals Department has the map of street closures. And I can provide you with this year's event now.
okay.
It shows where restrooms are and what parking is and.
Yeah, I figured
Stuff is.
the documentation exists somewhere. Just having a complete application was my goal. So.
Folks on Zoom catch all that? I'm seeing some heads shaking no, so we need to restate the question and the response. We need to make sure we get you on the microphone, so
Staff has reviewed the application for completeness. There's a couple of additional documents that will need to be supplied either by the applicant or the town marshal's office. The board is considering approving this application contingent upon the provision of that additional documentation. Thumbs up.
I think I'm seeing the heads not up and down on Zoom, so. Okay, if there's no other questions, comments, I'd entertain a motion.
I'm going to recuse myself from the vote.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So move to approve the special event application for Bronx Days 2023 with the contingencies as mentioned.
I'll go ahead and second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks. Okay, moving on to item number 8. Ordinance 2022-02, our short-term rental regulations. And this would probably ought to go through, I would think, maybe just go through what we've got. I
This
think
is
there's
just to put it up for public
only-
comment, right? Going forward, it's not to approve it.
No, it's actually board action.
Yeah,
So
but
it'd be
we still
approving.
have another step though, don't we?
No,
Okay.
no. Yeah, maybe we should, why don't you go ahead and restate the process, Becky?
So if approved tonight, this will be published. And then go into effect 30 days afterwards. That 30-day period does give the public an opportunity to comment. We will collect any comments that come to us and review them at our subsequent meetings prior to this going into effect.
So they would have until December 8th.
Mhm.
Okay.
And you all would have a chance at that point in time to revisit this.
Or is that more accurate? December 7th, because it would be approved by the 8th.
Mhm.
So by
Absolutely.
December
So
7th.
if we vote, we say we approve it, it goes for publication. If we really don't receive any comments, it would pretty much automatically go into effect.
Right, and I think comments that would be received would have to be evaluated on whether or not approval or enactment of this ordinance would change them. Approving this tonight allows us the opportunity to implement this prior to renewals. And it also gives staff a little bit more time to refine any of the documentation and the processes needed. And also to work with any of the licensees to ensure that they have time and staff support to put together any of the additional needed documentation. I would like to say that, we had a lot of folks working on this. We received a lot of comments from the community, both neighbors and short-term rental license holders. You all spent a phenomenal amount of time on it, and as did staff, and we really feel as though we have achieved a policy that is very fair, and that allows everybody to be the best neighbor that they can, while also allowing the town some teeth to enforce some issues for real issues that are coming up. This is not the last chance that we have to amend this. I would highly recommend that we reevaluate this in a year's time and look and see what else we can do for that process or policy improvement. We can go over a couple of the highlights from things that have changed in this. I think that it really comes down to the additional requirements that are going to go into the application packet, which is certainly not only the application packet, but a requirement of materials that will be posted and available to the guests so that they're aware of the rules. Within that, we had talked about whether or not to do inspections, and really arrived at a decision that a self-certification indicating that they have all the necessary equipment or information available to their guests is adequate. That includes the checklist that we've put together with a floor plan with fire exit routes posted at the property, a fire extinguisher with current inspection tags, adequate smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, trash and recycling schedule and information, wildlife safety sheet, burn restriction and wildfire safety sheet, a notice of excessive noise prohibitions, a map clearly delineating guest parking and premise boundaries, the licensee's contact information and contact information of the local agent, town contact information for the purpose of complaints concerning the premises, a posted copy of the short-term rental license be displayed at the property, and if applicable, a landline that would be registered with reverse 911.
Yeah, it's also important to mention that the rental license that we're looking at would have the maximum occupancy listed on as well. So you'd have a license with a max occupancy listed on it.
So in support of that, we have developed some materials that we'll be posting on the website and here and available to help the licensees through the renewal process. As we implement this, it's not intended to be something that should be hard. And we're here to work with people. It's mostly, I would say that it's more process improvement than it is policy update, but a little bit of both. Any other high points that I should touch on?
I would think the 30-minute requirement for responses be one that we'd want to bring up.
Absolutely. So we looked at this from a perspective of if it were a hotel, there would be a person that would be available to help guests 24/7. And that's, also to ensure that the safety and the comfort of the other guests in the hotel are accommodated. I know that there was a little bit of friction within the community of, maybe folks aren't available at all hours of the day, but it's really looking at this from a perspective of being available at all times that your business is in operation. And we felt that the ability to acknowledge a concern or a complaint within 30 minutes, whether it's by phone or in person, is reasonable. I know that there's a lot of folks that enjoy turning their phone off at night. There's an opportunity, I think, to appoint somebody as your local agent or an emergency contact or an after hours contact that would be able to handle those calls if you're unavailable.
I think that's reasonable. There an appeal fee if If there's any resistance to a license by the neighbors.
I don't know that I think we didn't end up, that was something that we discussed, but it didn't end up making it into your final draft. We felt that, I think that having an appeal for somebody that's, we didn't feel like it made sense.
I think the only thing I'm considering is staff time, just, what it costs to process something like that. Not to discourage people from doing it, but just acknowledging that it is the staff time.
So this ends up being, I think this is something that we should probably look at to see how frequent it occurs over the course of this next year. And if it ends up being something that is burdensome on staff time enough to justify implementing a fee for that, we can do so.
That sounds good.
Okay.
To me, as I look at this, personal opinion, I think it's a good first step in trying, this is a property rights issue with two sides. And to me, this is a good first step to try to achieve some level of balance between the two.
Yeah, good job. I think it's really clear, and it's not overly burdensome. We've seen some examples that we didn't really want to duplicate.
Yeah, I think we took so a lot of the best pieces of a lot of different policies and found a way to really tailor them to meet the local needs. I appreciate everybody's help and everybody's input that went into this.
So what do we need to do now? Approve the draft? or-
Well, I'm still kind of wondering if we should keep going with some highlights,
Okay.
just so folks kind of see what's in it.
Let me pull up my other copies so that I have it for reference if you'll entertain me for a moment.
For example, you mentioned you're putting this self-certification checklist together. We're drafting it. This is something that will be very important because when we do get complaints, we'll take the checklist out and if someone says, yeah, I did it. And if we see a hole, well, then we need to say, okay, well, you need to fix the hole. And if it goes really, really south, which I don't expect, this is actually something that can bring about the revocation or at least the suspension of a license very quickly. But that I wouldn't expect that to be a frequent case at all. I would expect that to be exceptionally rare.
Probably want to touch on the fines, brass tacks of it.
So we did have a lot of discussions regarding the fee and fine schedule or the fines for this. One of the items that was suggested is what happens if somebody rents to some unruly guests and they're in violation of several different issues all at once. And what we determined is really it's more appropriate that occurrence be an offense versus a noise, a parking, and a different thing all being separate. We looked at that being, really that event is the offense. So not wanting to make it to where it ends up being, to where an owner gets dinged because one renter.
When Reynolds doing 4 different things.
Right, exactly. But really being able to look at this of being, this is there's something that is going on within the materials that they're sending out. What can we do to help the license holder to improve the communications that they're having to prevent it from happening again. And that's really the way that we looked at this. It wasn't so much of let's penalize everybody, but more of a, how do we help our short-term rental owners create a better process and a better experience for their guests, and you know, a better situation for their neighbors. So that was one piece of it. What other questions would anybody have regarding those fines? And I was just getting into mine.
Something else that might be kind of nice to highlight is the requirement to post a business license on the advertising. That should help us identify short-term rentals that are unlicensed.
Absolutely.
So
So yeah, definitely for any other bookings, we would like for the short-term rental license holders to display their license number on the face of any advertisement. So that ends up being any bookings or printed publications to promote their short-term rental. That's just something that'll make it easier to determine whether or not they are licensed within the community. And in addition to that change, we'll be doing a little bit of a process improvement, changing the form that the license is printed on to include the maximum occupancy of that particular property. So that'll be also readily available at booking and when the guests are on site. Nate, if you would pop us up into the section with I think let's talk about renewals real quickly. So we recognize that a majority of our short-term rental license that we're able to have are effectively filled. We have about 5 open licenses yet to go. And so we kind of wanted to look at how is this going to impact anybody that was renewing their licenses and what additional requirements they would have to do that they haven't had to do in the past. That ends up being that self-certification checklist, as well as the inclusion of the wildfire safety sheet, a way to notify the guests and neighbors of how to make a complaint. And then also wildlife living with wildlife information, wildlife safety information. We also looked at a way to, you know, we had a couple of licenses that were kind of in progress and hanging out. And by the time they rolled around for approval, it had been a very long time since the notification to their neighbors went out. And we felt as though at a certain point in time, it would be more appropriate, you know, things change within 6 and 9 months. So we did want to have an ability to, you know, say that their application had expired and that at some point in time require them to begin the process again. That's mostly out of respect for notification of their neighbors.
along the lines of notification to the neighbors, did I read it right where anyone within 150 feet gets the contact number?
Yeah, that's part of the packet now to
That's what I
send.
thought I read.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically the application form as submitted is printed and is included in the notification letter.
Okay.
So again, that's another one of those process cleanups that we did that really aren't, that's the process being cleaned up, the administration of it versus the policy. In addition to the materials that we will be requesting as part of their application or renewal process. We did request that they ensure that their providing any of that trash and recycling information, as well as that notice of excessive noise, along with that map clearly delineating guest parking and the licensed premise boundaries.
You might want to touch on the parking when we're saying the
We
feet.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did have a discussion on parking. You know, we tried to look at, what's a reasonable amount of parking spaces for a short-term rental. And we really determined that that ends up being property specific. Some properties have much more parking availability than others. So that's something that we will be looking at on a case-by-case basis. The way that it's written here and requires that it be in compliance with the land use code and the manner in which the maximum permitted number of cars shall be parked, so as to avoid conflicts with the neighboring properties, public right of way, and to continue to maintain a 20-foot unobstructed roadway excluding the shoulder. So that is something that, really will have to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis.
I had somebody call and they wanted 20 people. Oh, they said we have a birthday party. They said they wanted, I said, well, how many people do you have? 20, we have 20 people. I said, that's. Most of my houses have only parked.
Right.
Where are they gonna get? Yeah. No, not gonna happen. Because that's. Oh,
Make sure it works.
but I thought I projected.
Not to Zoom land.
Thank you. Testing. Thank you. Yeah, and I have a cap on my guests for that parking area. I have people visiting my guests sometimes, and there's an extra car, but there's plenty of room for that. So, but I suppose houses that are on a side street like Olathe or Grandview, where it's just a narrow road. My buddy Kyle lives up there now, and I could see where the parking is tragic, but yeah, anyway.
So thank you for that. We
Yes.
also kind of looked at, what if somebody has more bedrooms than they have parking spaces? We did want to make sure that they had the ability to identify alternate parking spaces that are off-site and shuttle up if necessary. So that's just something that we as staff will evaluate as part of their parking plan. Any other questions from the board or from the audience?
About that license for advertising on Airbnb, sorry.
Can I have you get on the mic?
Yeah, sorry. Airbnb and VRBO, I don't know how they advertise. I suppose I could take where they have their photos, their pictures. I guess you could take a picture of the license and put it there. Say it again. Well, I would think you'd want to see the license physically. Which is it? The license or the license number?
The license number, you'll display the physical license at the property,
Got
which
it.
will have the license number on it, but in your posting or any of your advertisements, just the number. Additional discussion.
Yeah. Board members, any other highlights that you'd like to maybe bring up? If not, since it's listed as an action, I'd entertain a motion.
I would motion to approve ordinance 2022-02, short-term rental regulations.
As corrected. We had two
As
corrections.
corrected.
Yeah,
Two
the
corrections,
corrections were, we need to make sure everything says licenses expire on December 31st. We had a conflict within a couple paragraphs. And then,
Pikes Peak Courier.
yeah, we need
Pikes
to
Peak Courier,
correct the
midnight,
Pikes Peak
31st.
Courier.
Yep.
Because right now it says Pike Peaks. So we need to correct that. So there's two corrections.
Yeah, take that.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance 2022-02 for short-term rental regulations as corrected. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 9, our reports. I'll start with Catherine this time.
I just want to thank the UPass elementary school, the Spanish teacher and the art teacher and the music director and all the kids participated in the Dia de los Muertos. They made excuse me, they made decorations at school, and they also we collaborated with the I don't know exactly what the parent organization is called, but they came and decorated Sally Bush and provided lots of the promotional materials. Yeah, it was just a really great collaboration, and it was the first one we've done in some time with the Chamber of Commerce, and hopefully it's just the first of many to come. We are planning to work together on a tree lighting event, and I have been approached about changing the date, so I'm not sure when the date will be. It might be, the usual date would be the 26th, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and it may end up being that day after all. But it was really great. The music was great, and lots of folks, we had great attendance, and folks were talking about how great it was to have dancing in Sally Bush. So yeah, more to come. Thank you.
I don't have anything.
Okay, Sunday.
Nothing.
Nick?
The 24th and 26th, we had a pretty good, successful couple meetings there with emergency management from all over with David Douglas and the assistance of Becky, our town manager. That was outstanding. Thank you very much for your assistance, Nate, and you too for being present. It's an evolving thing. It's for emergency management, coming up with an evacuation plan, community wildfire protection plan that hasn't been redone since 2007, and a lot of technologies have changed. We kind of identified some, I believe it was like statute 29-11-104, not to get really boring with that, but it might cover 100% our sirens, possibly an amplifier for cell phone, repeater of sorts. And I believe we're going to be visiting the Office of Emergency Management on the 9th. If anybody else wants to join, more than welcome aboard. But
Which office is that?
it's the Pikes Peak Office of Emergency Management. Becky?
It would be the Pikes Peak Regional Office of Emergency Management. Their director, Jim Reed, has graciously offered to give a little tour of their Emergency Operations Center. If additional members of the board would like to attend, please let me know so that if we need to notice as a public meeting, we can do so.
Yeah, the director, Jim Reed, was a pretty big help on the 26th. He wasn't able to attend on the 24th, but it was we had an awful lot of folks here. Director for Teller County's Office of Emergency Management, fire warden down there for El Paso County. We had our own Dan Batten for our Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee here present, and another representative, I believe, from wildfire, and just it was a great roundtable. with an awful lot of information. And again, it's a evolving thing, and I'll be reporting on that frequently until we get it done. Yeah, it's exciting.
Anything else? I'd like to take this time to put the plug in for the planning commission and on their work on the land use code. I'm very, very pleased with what they're coming up with. It's just, I wish situations had kind of been different. We could have had some of the maybe assistance that they have now earlier. But what they have come up with, yeah, just very happy with. They've got some things in tabular format. They're looking at some potential minor activities that could be done without planning commission having to come together. So yeah, put a plug in for that. Let's see what else. I think Becky's going to go over some of the most recent developments with our projects that we have currently going. And I also need to get with Parks, Rec and Trails to maybe see about getting the memorial bricks kind of kick-started again. I've got some couple places that look like they might do stone etching type things. So yeah, I'll be trying to get with Park, Rec and Trails here in the not too distant future about seeing if we can't get that reestablished. See what else. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I had it on the tip of my tongue and it went. So I'll just go ahead and we'll move on to the committee reports.
No committee reports submitted.
Okay. We'll move on then to staff reports.
So yeah, I'm not going to read through this entire list, but just a couple of highlights. The Stilling Basin, we did discover some additional fiber lines that, I don't know if it's fiber, some utility, Comcast, I believe, that wasn't found during our locates. So that kind of put us back a little bit. Thankfully, the contractor was able to begin doing some work up on the upper end of the project. But it did delay tying in the line where it goes under the road to the lake. Still shouldn't be too far off base in having that project completed before too long in the next few weeks. With that, we will begin working with the PRT to identify the remaining available space and redesign that area as a park and to accommodate the features that it had there previously. Want to thank Andre, the engineer, for his time in meeting with a couple of the residents in that area late last week. I think that he was able to answer a lot of questions that they had and provide some assurance. The gazebo lake, this is new today, out there working on installing the gate and the outlet stream. The contractor discovered a hole that looks like it was probably culvert that was old and collapsed, but it was definitely wet in that area. So we are looking at a potential contract amendment to that. We do have some remaining funds in that grant to be able to be utilized for that if need be. We are on a little bit of a quick timeline. If that is something that ends up needing to happen, we'll likely call a special meeting to be able to do that. Currently, we are looking at the possibility of an extension on that grant deadline if need be, as well as the contractor is putting together some cost estimates of what he believes that will end up being to repair that line. As is, he would be able to tie in the existing, he'd planned to put in there and just really reinforce it with the piping that would need to be installed. By doing so, it would certainly extend the life of that infrastructure that's being put in there. So it'd be definitely a good long range thing to do.
How much more money do we have left in that grant?
$11,500 is the surplus there, the contingency on that grant. You will have an update for the comprehensive roads plan at your December the 13th meeting. So we have that to look forward to. Public Works has completed the base buildup for the season and they've got the mag chloride put down. Roads are looking pretty good. We have received a couple of loads of the salt sand. That's El Paso County that provides that for winter skid control. And they are ready to be able to begin snow removal as the season requires. We are looking at some additional treatments for spraying of the mag chloride to help keeping the roads put together, as well as building up that stockpile of road base so that we're ready to go next spring. They completed the striping of Pass Avenue with the exception of the area near the Stilling Basin project, which is still under construction. That company will come back out and install those remaining pedestrian markers and crosswalks, as well as complete the striping when that project is finished, hopefully on November 18th. And their Public Works is still just working to continue to winterize our facilities for the season. We are still working on your 2023 budget, getting pretty close. Do have an update for the CPW dumpster blind. We'll be meeting with a couple of folks down there on Thursday morning to begin getting some concept designs or some spatial components lined out, as well as meeting with a representative from the trash hauling company to ensure that that design that is put together is something that will be easy for their drivers to get in and out of. Looking at doing a little bit of a different project than we had originally anticipated, looking at, rather than having individual dumpsters in there, it may be easier to have one large dumpster that folks can all contribute to, with the town being the host organization of that dumpster. So looking at a couple of different options, we'll evaluate which one we think ends up being the most appropriate for that space and the best utilized. Still waiting to hear back on the READY grant for the pool planning project. And we've got your short-term rental ahead of you. What else is on there? Oh, yep. The last thing is that we did submit the draft Vista assignment description, commonly referred to as the VAD, to DCI. We hope that that position would be able to support the vacant planner position, as well as some other town projects, really looking at how it would support the capacity building of all of the committees, and looking at some, identifying additional projects that would support additional community cohesion. So that VAT is at least initiated for 2023. I'll have an update at your next meeting on what that timeline looks like. Outside of that, questions for me? Awesome. Nate, you're up.
Okay, so excuse me. First of all, Mile High Youth Corps completed their 5-week fall season, which completed their 15 weeks total this year on that co-swap grant. They reported a total of 10.21 acres of land thinned with 2,700 plus trees felled, and those are in different statuses right now. Some of them have been, all of them have been bucked, meaning getting the limbs off. Some of them are still whole, laying on the ground. Some of them have been cut into the 3-foot sections and piled. So there's still some volunteer opportunities there, or budgeting for that, or we're still waiting to hear back on that GoCo grant, which could potentially address some of that fuel that's on the ground.
Are we still thinking about maybe getting with some homeowners up there to maybe look at having certain days where people can go up and grab firewood?
Yeah, I think that'd be more better in the spring, maybe
Yeah.
after things have been able to dry out a little bit. But yeah, we can certainly advertise any method. The challenge is access up there. So like you said, it'd be good to just keep communication open with the homeowners that have granted access through their land to this point, and maybe they would agree to some certain scheduled dates for that. So I'll talk more with the Fire Mitigation Advisory Committee about potential volunteers that could do. I have some ideas of just getting some of the actual branches and things that are piled up, either scattered better or removed where feasible. So the CUSP contractor also finished their 10 acres along Thomas Trail. So this summer, along with that Iona Scott right-of-way, there's been about 21 acres cleared this season. So that's pretty good. And that GoCo grant should hear back in December on whether or not we're awarded that. And that's again that match. So that would be a $8,000 match required if we were to receive that award. And we've been talking to the fire district as well about potentially partnering on that. So they've seemed pretty open to the possibility of contributing some funds to that effort, which is great. Short-term rentals, these 3 have been approved since the last my last report. 10905 Hondo, 10870 Olathe, and 10890 Grandview. So that puts us at 54 out of 60 available licenses taken. There's 3 pending there, and actually if we count 10645 and 10635, those are the townhomes next door. I'm not sure of the status on that. The applications were made assuming a closing was going to happen, and I don't know if any of that happened. So very, very not sure what's going on with those. Planning wise, the land use code updates have been posted. So on the website, I can just kind of show you on the town website, there is created an article. So basically one can go in this current versus future land use code, and you can look at the current code, and then you can look at the latest draft as well to compare. So the Planning Commission is definitely wanting as much public input as possible. This timeline this is the newest timeline of upcoming meetings, and this has also been published in the Pikes Peak Courier to let people know. So there's November 8th, November 22nd. Those are essentially Planning Commission study or work sessions where the public is welcome to come comment. The public's always welcome to come comment, but Planning Commission wants to make sure that everyone knows that these meetings are available. And then the December 6th meeting in December, the Planning Commission and board meetings will be swapped essentially. So December 6th will be the planning commission. And assuming everything goes smoothly from this point on, that would actually be that presentation of the final draft for planning commission, a decision on that, whether or not to recommend approval to the board at that time or with some minor changes. And then the 13th would be will be the Board of Trustees meeting, and that could potentially be the acceptance or approval of the entire code. Austin, I believe, will be here. He's the contractor we've been working with through our town attorney office. He's been really great to work with, very efficient. And he will be available, I believe, at both of those meetings. I'll double check that, but the 6th and the 13th, just to kind of help with the presentation to the board and make sure everyone understands the ramifications of these changes. One other note, land use wise, there is an application from Colorado Springs Utilities that will be presented next week at Planning Commission for the first time. There's about 4 variances, actually 2 variances and 2 exemptions to the Hillside Overlay District as it's defined right now. Those are published. That was published at the Pikes Peak Courier. There's also a sign on site. Its address is 10865 Hondo, I believe. So basically, if you're heading up Hondo, the 3rd property past Howard on the left, you'll see a big sign that explains the variances. But basically, they want to put a new pump station there, water pump station. There's one currently over on I believe it's Park and Pine or Spruce, one of those. It's basically was put in the 80s. It's reached the end of its life, and they've identified this property as the best place in town to put a new one. So there'll be a lot of information, kind of a significant development there. So that'll be presented at the next planning commission, and then all those variances and everything will have to come to the board for final approval. So if you're able, I would recommend maybe attending next week's planning commission meeting, because there's a lot of detail in those plans to digest. I think that's about it. Any questions?
Nate, what is Austin's last name?
Flanagan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate. Couple final things. Staff is going to be out of town hall tomorrow, so I'm shifting my hours to keep town hall open. And so instead of 10 to 2, I'll be there 1 to 5. Or thereabouts, whatever's needed. Also, it's voting season, and we have an item on the ballot for the RTA. I would say our infrastructure improvements are extremely dependent upon that passing. And so we would appreciate a yes vote on that. And we'll move on to item number 10. Do we have any correspondence?
No.
Okay. Any other last minute items before I get my old hammer here? Okay, it's 7:59 and we are adjourned.